And I think we're ready to go. So thank you, Elizabeth, for showing up here and being willing to talk a little bit about Instagram for book authors, because I think, like me, most of them really don't know how to use Instagram. Period, probably. Other upload images, some things like that. But how do you build an audience, and then how do you promote specifically books?
Yeah, so those are really, really great questions. And fortunately, they're actually sort of similar because I found that when people try to make a one size fits all strategy for anything on social media, it doesn't work. And authors often, at least in my experience, get a little bit overwhelmed because their stories, a lot of times, especially if they're fiction authors, are so individualized and so personal to them. They're like, well, none of this works for me. But the one size fits all doesn't work for anybody, so it's okay. um it's got a little bit more nuance. So as far as getting an audience, developing an audience, when we were speaking a little bit before we went live, you mentioned that you have a brand, and that is the essence of beginning to create an organic audience online. If you don't know what you write and what you stand for, you're going to have a very, very hard time translating that to anyone else. So typically when I get started with people, I say, like, well, what is your book about? What is the crux of it? If you had to give it to me in 2 sentences, what? And then once people get there, now, okay, what are you about? What makes you, what brings your unique perspective into this? And then we can kind of start to craft a brand. And it doesn't have to be like, a lot of the times people focus in on color scheme and fonts and the super tangible elements of branding, and they matter. But if you skip that first part, they're not really going to help you that much. And so that's kind of the beginning of where you do an audience. And then like building an audience is creating like a brand that people can actually latch on to, relate to, and care about. um,
It seems to me that um, some of the people that seem to be the most successful are people that actually, create a real person on Instagram. They're not just I got a book to sell. I got a book to sell. They actually share pieces of their life and actually get people involved. Is that a good strategy?
yes. So the whole "this exists, please buy it" era of marketing is gone. That we don't want that anymore. People want someone to connect to, and so I was speaking about this earlier actually, and the person I was talking to was like, okay, but I don't want to be that out there. That feels weird to me. Like, this is myself. This is my personal, like, and I don't want to. And that's fair. You don't have to put out more than you want to. You just need to put out enough to seem human. So one of my favorite things that I've seen in the writing community recently is authors, when they're working on their works in progress, they're sharing the pain points of working on a work in progress. So it's not like I'm having this horrible personal fight or emotional breakdown or whatever. It's, have you ever had a character that just won't cooperate? Um, so it's just you don't have to get that deep. You just need to admit that, like, it's a step away from perfection, is what people are kind of clinging to in a lot of ways.
I like that idea of a step away from perfection. I think too often people try to be too perfect online, and you don't become a real person that way. It sounds like you might be a book author. You seem to understand the pain of a book author. Is that true?
Oh, it's
Are you working on one,
it's
or?
so close to true. It's so close to true. Yeah, I've been an avid reader since, like, words made words on the screen. Like, since I could read, I have read everything, and I've not as naturally extends from that. I started writing when I was pretty young too, and I'm hoping to get something actually published before I turn 26. I'm 24 now. That's an arbitrary number, but it's one I picked when I was a kid, so I'm hoping to still check that off.
Do you want to be published by a larger publisher or self-publish, or does it matter?
if I got an like if a query, I'm not going to go and pitch. I guess that's what I should say. If I got someone that was interested in it and just so happened to work like that, which is like, you know, never going to happen. But if something like that were to happen, then I would consider it. But I mean, you even see big names stepping away from traditional publishing at this point.
Right.
Like the thing is that social media marketing, not just Instagram, but social media marketing in its entirety has opened up the world for independently self-published authors to make just as big of a swing as traditionally published authors if you do it right, because you build your reputation online. You don't have to have somebody else say this person is good. You can be like, I'm good, here's proof.
I think proof is good. What kind of book are you working on? Is it fiction or nonfiction or?
It's fiction, and it's basically me through a dystopian sort of era, because, you know, I did grow up reading like the Divergent series and a little bit of Harry Potter and a little bit of the Hunger Games and all of that, but
Okay.
it's very much a critique of our education system, actually. So it's fiction, but it's like
What
I'm at high school.
you can critique it?
Yeah, just a little bit. I just have a couple comments.
Well, actually, that can be, you know, obviously, if you want to play off of Divergent or Hunger Games or something like that, you know, that audience is still there. I think it's still a large audience. I
Absolutely.
mean, it's what, 5 years or so after the expiration date in some ways, but I think the audience is still there. Certainly, the audience for Harry Potter is still there, and
I have
so
a Ravenclaw mug right here that I'm using to drink coffee.
okay. So, have you started to build your audience for your critique for your fiction?
Oh, goodness. Sort of. So I haven't really made, I don't make it a big part of my personal brand that I'm a writer at this point. And part of
Right.
that is because I do so many other things and I don't want to muddle the clarity of my brand.
Okay.
So not only am I a social media strategist who focuses on creating basically Instagram plans for authors, but I'm an artist.
Okay.
And I'm a mental health and feminist advocate,
Okay.
and I'm writing a book. So it's like the book thing is so far out right now. I definitely believe that people need to be, if they're on social media and they're using that as their primary marketing platform, that they need to be building it before it's released. But I haven't even sent it to a developmental editor yet. So I'm kind of, you know what I mean? Like I will get there. I did create a Bookstagram account just for fun recently.
Okay.
And that's been really good. And that'll probably be where I launch that.
Okay. That sounds great. Um, so, for most book authors, as you said, and I would say, you have to start developing an audience before your book is released.
Mm-hmm.
And I presume some of that is sharing something about you and your pain of writing, you know, or success of writing, what you like about it, what you love about it. I think if you share insights on writing, there'll be a big audience there, people that would like to know your process and what you go through and things like that. But how do you share that on Instagram as an image?
Well, I think we need to take a step away from the concept that Instagram is just an image sharing platform,
Okay.
because it's very confining. Um, you have probably heard about Instagram Reels. Um,
Yes.
yes. So one of the neat things about them is that they're not just pointing, dancing, lip syncing weirdness. You can also just set up your phone camera and share information. And that's, I think, one of my favorite new things that Instagram is doing, because we've never had more of an education based social economy, right? Like we love to learn things. Getting pushed into lockdown by the pandemic and getting a lot more time on our screens than could ever be healthy probably made us want to learn more. And that's like why we saw the rise of short form video. We were already seeing it, but it like spiked up when we got bored. And the people that did really well were the ones that were teaching information in a way that wasn't boring.
Okay. I teach a course on how to market on Pinterest.
Okay.
And I've always loved Pinterest because the people there want to learn.
Mhm.
And I have found that the most effective pins are ones where you're sharing information. And I guess, share your life also. I think both are important. But I think, is Instagram very similar in that way?
It is now. So it didn't used to be.
Okay.
Instagram used to be a lot about the curated photos and the look and the and all of that, but it has basically, with the rise of TikTok, it has taken a turn towards informality and
Okay.
towards education, which has
Okay.
been really nice. I do better with that than I do with the aesthetic first stuff for sure.
So have you done a dancing video yet?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I'm awful at it. I'm just atrocious.
Well, I
I
think
am
those are the ones that go viral.
my viral video, I've had one that got 1.7 million plays. And it was a thing that I threw out there that I didn't think anything of. Nothing happened for like 3 weeks. And then I woke up one day and my phone had basically jumped across the room with notifications. Um, and it didn't do me one lick of good either. So that's the thing. A lot of
It
people are
it
like,
it
I want to
probably
get.
didn't address your audience, is that correct? Or
Yeah, it didn't. It was just something that I put out there to put out there. It was about I was slamming body shamers was what I
okay.
was doing, which is a
Okay.
hot button issue,
Yeah.
and it came it got shared somewhere. That what happened is it got shared to some popular account stories most likely, and
Right.
then their fan base just attacked. But the Instagram algorithms, they do not differentiate between negative feedback and positive feedback. And so all of their comments were just like, oh, people like this. We're going to play it to everyone else. We're going to play it to more people like the people who are commenting on this. And so it just turned into this really horrible cesspool of not very nice people. But
Yeah.
it ended up okay. Like it ended up with a bunch of people being like, no, she's right. What are you talking about? But it took a while for it to make its rounds back into the general public. Um,
Okay. Was that on Instagram?
yeah.
Okay. And so I guess videos can go viral on Instagram. Have
Oh
you had any just a post of an image that went viral or okay.
no. The
Did you
short
get
form.
very many signups from the video?
No.
No.
No, but I have gotten lots of signups and sales from videos that have less than 2,000 plays,
Right.
because they were more targeted to my audience. So they didn't have as broad of an appeal, and they weren't me being particularly controversial. So they didn't like spark all of that extra engagement. But I've actually found that most of my highest converting pieces of content to sales for me have been the stuff that if you were to scroll through my feed, you'd be like, oh, that tanked. It didn't. They just didn't like it. They went to my website.
How do you get people to go from a post or a video to your website? How do you do that on Instagram? I know on Pinterest, every pin has a link back to a page on your website. Does Instagram have any kind of feature like that?
Um, Not really, no. So, in your Instagram stories, you can add a link now. Everybody can. You don't have to have the 10,000 followers to swipe up. We got rid of that last year.
Okay.
But what you just have to say link in bio, or check this out at the link in my bio. And when you set up your profile, you want to make sure that that last line is a call to action that tells people what they're going to find at that bio, so you don't lose them when they go link in bio, oh okay, and they check out your profile and then forget why they're there. You want to make sure that that like you go like, get this resource or sign up for my newsletter here, and then when they go to the bio, you see like, join the newsletter for all the updates at this link.
Now, I think you said LinkedIn bio. You're sending them. You would do it
um
to your Instagram bio, or do you do it to LinkedIn?
No, link in bio. So that
Oh, okay.
no. LinkedIn
I
is a
was
whole
getting
other
confused.
conversation.
I didn't think Instagram would want to send anybody to LinkedIn.
No.
So, okay.
No. But the common phrase people use under their post is link in bio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured that that's sort of what you had to do. It's a little bit harder than you're sending people to a generic page because you don't have multiple um, places where you can send them. Like on Pinterest, every pin can go to a specific page. So
So
you can really target people a little bit more, maybe. Is that true or not?
so yes, it's true, but there is a workaround.
All right.
So
That's what I want, the secret.
so when you have your link in your bio, you can open it up to a link tree. So you can have multiple different links. So instead of it just being like you can go to my website or you can buy my book, you can have
Okay.
buy my book, join my newsletter, go to my website, and they're all buttons. The trick is to use action words so that people don't just like stare at a bunch of options. They know which action they're trying to take.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that's easy to set up. I haven't done that yet since
So
I
link
just rejoined Instagram.
So Linktree is a free one that's super easy to use. There are a couple other options depending on how decorative and branded you want to be with everything. I use a very basic Linktree at this point. Again, aesthetics is not really my calling card, so I don't worry
Now,
about
is that outside of Instagram or
it. So
okay?
but it's super simple. It's literally you type in Linktree into Google and it'll be the first thing that pops up. And you create an account, and you would want to do like your username would be book marketing success, kind of like how you
Right.
get everything else set up. And then when people click on that, it'll open into an internet browser like it would if you were clicking on a link, except for
Right.
you can present them with several different options as far as like what they want to do. I wouldn't add more than 3 to 4 links at a time so that you don't lose people in the confusion of like, well, what am
Right.
I supposed to do right now?
But you
But
can change those links then.
absolutely, yeah. So I rotate them out. Like I usually keep my newest blog post, my most booked consulting session, and then my general website are always active. And then depending on like what freebie I'm offering or whatever, that'll also be there.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
That makes sense. That sounds great. So you'd Google linked, no,
Link
Linktree?
tree. So yeah,
Okay.
just because it trees out.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. That's an insider secret I didn't know about. Um, now, I've heard that there's a hashtag. Are hashtags used much in Instagram? I thought they were. They used to be, I know, really hot. I know I would see Instagram posts with like 30 or 40 hashtags, and I'm going, I think that's too much. But is there a strategy for using hashtags?
So absolutely. And this is actually something that has just recently changed. So I'm going to back up and then I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
Um, so Instagram has sort of shifted from hashtags being the main way you look things up to operating more like a search engine. So words like SEO, I don't know how familiar everybody is with that, but that's more important than hashtags specifically now. That did not used to be the case, but as of us talking right now, that's what's up. So hashtags are still great because they index content and make it easier for them to understand, for the algorithm to understand who wants to see your content and where your content is relevant, but it will no longer push out content that is not already performing well.
I get it.
Ooh. So yeah, it's like so hashtag Bookstagram is a huge hashtag. And for most smaller audiences, like people with smaller audiences, there's no way you're going to rank under that.
Right.
So, but it's fine because you can use things like hashtag fantasy bookstagram. You know, like, so if you're a fantasy author or if you're posting a book about fantasy, you just want to kind of get more specific because the more specific you are, the more likely it is that your content will be placed in front of people who are searching for you and who actually want to see your stuff. It's not
Okay,
just fun
so
items.
something like romance bookstagram or business bookstagram or
Yeah.
some things like that. But then what you said that the new thing is that they're actually looking for keywords.
Basically, so you want to use your hashtags as if they're keywords. And
Okay.
then pay attention, like in your bio and in your copy. Now, not to the point that you don't post. It's more important that you put content out there than it is that you have all of these boxes ticked before you start, because there is no way to tick all of these boxes before you've done it several times. It's too much to ask someone. It's too much of a learning curve. It's better to see, oh, well, this works for me, so let me keep doing this thing. Now let's add in, how can I make it a little bit better, rather than here's your 105-point checklist on a on a post, right?
Are there mistakes you can make that you'd have to worry about, or can you make mistakes when you're starting out with Instagram and you post something, it doesn't work, but it doesn't hurt you either. Uh,
Absolutely. So the only time that you're really going to get penalized by Instagram is if you do something that violates its community guidelines.
you can't post about COVID.
You can post about COVID. What they do is they put a banner that directs you to the CDC's website under your post, whether you want them to or not.
Yeah,
So they've kind of worked around that one just a little bit. Like if you even mentioned like what I said earlier, and I was like, COVID made us like all kind of like bury into our phones and self-reflecting, like all of that. Because
right,
I mentioned COVID, they would put a banner under. It's like, if you want to know more about COVID and vaccination, please go to the CDC's website. So
right.
that's how they're handling that. But more like, nothing racist,
Well,
nothing
just
that's,
you have to be kind.
yeah, which is just a good general rule of thumb.
For social media, it seems like it makes sense that you should be kind.
And there's a feature on Instagram now where they will tell you if you do violate community guidelines, they will tell you what you did and on what post you did it. So it's not some
But
random.
that's only after you've done the post, and then you find out what mistake you made.
Well, they don't delete your account though. They delete the post,
Right.
and your reach will probably be reduced for like a week or so. Just don't do it over and over and over again.
Okay.
Um,
Can you edit, go back and edit a post?
the so so sort of, you can edit your captions. You can edit the captions of your posts, but you can't edit the visual
Right.
unless you're talking about carousels, which is the multi-photo
Right.
post. You can remove some of those slides.
Do the multi-photo posts work at all? Are they useful to do?
Absolutely. So one unique characteristic of the multi-photo post is that if your audience does not, if your viewer does not interact with it the first time it goes through your feed, through their feed, the second time it goes through their feed, it'll show the second slide of that post. So they think they're seeing new content, and it
Okay.
increases the likelihood that they'll engage.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that they would end up seeing multiple images from that carousel.
Mhm.
Now, does a static image work better than video, or is video hotter? I mean, at one point, Pinterest was focusing on video and highlighting it, but now they seem to be going back to the static image kind of thing. It, is there something on Instagram like that in terms of what works best, or it may
So
depend on your audience?
it does depend on your audience, but if you looked at it in broad strokes, which I always say do, but then test, it's that short form video has the highest chance of virality. So you are more likely to get in front of more eyeballs with short form video if you do it consistently over time. It's more likely to happen. And the engagement rate on Reels is just higher than everything else. That
Okay.
being said, showing up on the Explore feed, not the Reels feed, but the Explore feed. That's easier to do with a multi-post, multi-photo, or a single post, because there's only one little spot for Reels, whereas there's a bunch of spots for everything else.
Okay.
So you know, I do a healthy mix of both. I try to post 3-ish reels a week, and I try to put out a single post or a multi-post every day but Sunday, because I need a day off. And that's like how I handle it. And then I do live videos on Fridays, but that's mostly because I'm trying to develop credibility with my audience. So like I have specific goals in mind when it comes to each piece of content that I put out, as well as my overall strategy, which is also somewhere that we tend to miss things. Even when it comes to marketing books, like you want to put out information about you as a writer. You want to put information out. It's your book, but it's not just about that. It's certain pieces of content should be designed to attract new people to your page. That's not going to be the sales content. That's not going to be the graphic with your book on it that shows where to put that. That is a conversion piece. And your engagement rate on that is likely to be garbage, but that's okay. That's not the point of that post. The point of that post is to get people to go to the link that lets them buy the thing from you. But like putting out reels about yourself, well, that's a little bit more of an attraction tactic to bring people into your page. And then doing book reviews of authors that are similar to yourself, which is one of the things that I think is drastically underutilized. If you review comparable titles, that's nurturing your community, because they will first of all see you as a credible source. If you've read this and understand this and have the same taste as them, well, maybe they're going to like what you produced.
I like that. With the reels, how long is the typical video on Instagram? I know that if you go live, you're probably doing a longer segment or a longer video, but if you're doing the reels or shorter videos, how short should they be? Is there a limit, like 10 seconds is too short? 5 minutes is too long? Anything like that?
So Instagram Reels will not let you shoot a video that's longer than a minute.
Okay.
So a minute is your limit. I say go as short as you can, being basically only make a video as long as it absolutely has to be. Because what we have the attention span of goldfish or something like that, right? So we want to make sure that people don't get distracted. And typically, like you don't want to do it the way that you like talk to people. It's like you state a headline, because I don't walk up to people and go, 3 tips you should know about Instagram. Cut a bunch of tips about Instagram. But that is how I shoot reels. Because people want to know what you're going to talk about before you start talking, so that they can decide whether or not they're interested.
Okay, so the first image in your reel is the headline, sort of, and then you start talking.
Yeah, and you tend to want to keep things to really simple and short and actionable. So like if you were going to share writing tips, you would go, a writing tip that I wish I knew before I got started. And then you would share the writing tip, and then you would say like, follow for more or something like that. And then the next time you wanted to shoot a video, you'd go, a writing tip I wish I knew before I got started, part 2. And then you go, it really is that like straightforward.
And then the live videos, that's sort of like Facebook Live, or?
It's similar, yeah. Instagram lives are a lot more informal than Facebook lives in general.
All right. Yeah. And that can be, well, you probably still don't want to go too long.
So the trick with lives is you want to go long enough for your audience to join you.
Okay.
But you don't want to go so long that nobody ever watches the replay.
Right.
So typically the way that I structure mine is I will bring on a guest, because when you bring on a guest, it brings their audience to. Um, and then I will do my live, and I shoot for 30 to 45 minutes. An
Okay.
hour is the cap. You can't, like, it will shut you down in an hour. I think that's different for verified accounts, but I'm not really sure.
Okay.
But it shuts you down in an hour. But typically, like, I will put all of the most action-packed, like, stuff that I need you to hear in order to believe that I am a credible source at the front part, and then the more get to know me stuff is at the end, so that people who are watching it, they don't actually have to sit down and watch a 45-minute video on their phone. They can get the information they need in the first 15 minutes, and then if they want to know what I'm currently reading, then they're more than welcome to stick around.
That's part of what you share in a live is what are you currently reading?
Like I talk to my guests, and so typically speaking, one of my guests has been a fantasy author, and one of the things that I needed to do for her, because she didn't get around to it, was reading comparable titles, so we actually knew how to market the book. Because if you don't know what your book's like, then it's really hard to tell readers why they should like it. And so I basically read, oh my god, I've read like 6 or 7 like full fantasy books this year already, which is a lot of reading. But yeah, we'll talk about them, like the elements that I think are similar to her storyline. So it kind of serves as a dual promotion sort of thing, obviously.
Right.
But also, I like talking about my books, and nobody else in my life has read them. So.
Okay. So how would people reach out to you? How would they find you? I like your wildflower social media. That's just because I like wildflowers. I like any kind of flower. Uh, but where would they reach out to you?
So you can find me at Wildflower Social on all social media platforms. Just take away the E. So that's Wildflower Social. Or you can just
You
email
said
me.
take away the E?
Yeah, the E is the one with the handle with the E was already taken by somebody who doesn't post, but you can't really do anything about that. So
Okay.
I mean, you can, but it's not worth it because half the time it doesn't work. Um,
Right.
or you can email me at liz@wildflowersocialmedia.com.
Okay, great. And is there any final points you want to leave people with, or some tip or something about using Instagram or social media that would make a difference,
Yeah. So
other than be kind?
other than be kind, which is really important, it is kind of an extension of what I'm about to say. It's that you can't approach social media wholly self-interested and expect to get results. You need to be willing to give a little bit. Now, not miles, not, but like, have an interest in your fans, have an interest in your community, because that can really be felt. And it's a lot more fun if you let yourself enjoy it. So that would be my thing. And figure out. I think that the biggest thing that I see authors miss is they forget to ask themselves why they wrote the book in the first place. And I think that that's something that readers and other authors would just enjoy to know.
That's interesting. There's one thing I uh, back a number of years ago when your main publicity was like TV interviews or radio interviews. The one thing, one question everybody seemed to ask is, why did you write the book? Which I thought was the worst question you could ask, but apparently in some ways it's a good question to answer, at least in your social media.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird one when you're trying to like do an interview or fill out a website or something like that. But when you're on social, when you're making social content, it's one of those places that people can connect to.
Right.
So it's just, the more places that you give people to grab onto and see you as another person instead of somebody trying to sell them something, more likely you are to make a sale. So
Does it work to hold up a cute dog when you're on Instagram?
absolutely.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to hit the bestsellers list by doing that, but people love pets.
Yeah.
And if you can relate it back to yourself, it's fine. Never post something just because you feel like you have to post it. But if you can relate it back to your messaging in some way, shape, form, like my dog is in half my content. I'm actually surprised he hasn't started barking and made an appearance here. But that's just because like part of my whole shtick is that I am a book reading dog mama who drinks way too much coffee.
Okay. I get that, and that's that's a nice sort of connection because I think too the things that I've seen on Pinterest is I love coffee,
Mhm.
pins. There's a lot of those, a lot of them with Snoopy in them. Apparently Snoopy likes coffee, and then dogs. My most popular video on Pinterest was a man exercising with his dog, and it got like 3 million views. It was amazing. But totally unrelated to most of what I do, except that I have a core group on Pinterest of people that like fitness, because back when I first started off, I did a fitness pin that went viral. It got like 2 million repins. And, so I built up an audience of fitness people. And so I'm trying to figure out the book I should write for that audience. Because it's not my audience. My audience is authors who want to sell more books. And
Well,
do
have you
you work?
asked them?
What's that?
Have you asked your fitness audience what book they would like?
I haven't yet, and maybe I should. Um,
That's one of my favorite things that social media lets us do now is it lets us just go, "Hey, what do you want from me?"
and that's a good question to ask, I guess,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah,
way
but
of
we used
interacting. Now, who is your typical client? I mean, we talked. Apparently, you have worked with some authors. Do you work with businesses? Do you work with?
so although I am not new to my field, I am new to being a business owner, which means my client base is a little bit scattered at the moment. I work with businesses and nonprofits, but my favorite and most reoccurring clients are authors.
Okay,
I've worked on a continual basis for over a year with a nonprofit author in the health, nonfiction author, sorry, in the health space. And then again with a fiction author who does epic fantasy. So those have been my two favorite, and it's been completely different approaches too, which has been really really fun.
right.
But yeah, that
Okay. And so again, how do people reach out to you?
probably the best way to get me is to email me at liz@wildflowersocialmedia.com.
And they can find out more about you at wildflowersocialmedia.com.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Thanks a lot, Liz. This has been fantastic. I've learned a lot. So
Good.
I hope that my audience learns a lot too. And I think I'm going to have to do some lives and a few more reels. Uh,
Absolutely.
have you ever done a Virginia reel?
A Virginia reel?
Yeah, that's a dance.
Oh no.
I
No,
have
I
no
wasn't
idea.
kidding when I
I've
said I
just
can't
heard the
dance.
name, so I have no idea what it is, but it sounds great.
I wasn't kidding when I said I can't dance. That is not a. I have a lot of skills. That's just not one of them.
Okay, so thank you. This has been John Kramer interviewing and talking with Liz at wildflowersocialmedia.com. And thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.